So what if you have x squared? What if you have x squared plus x plus 1 equal to 0? Well, if we do the convention that we were following, this is 1 times x, so if you divide by 2, what do you get? You get x plus 1/2 squared, and then you have to ask the following. 1/2 squared plus what gives you 1? Well, 1/2 squared is 1/4, right? 1/4 plus what gives you 1? 3/4? Okay. So it's 3/4. Kind of sucks if it's not an even number. Okay, that's what. So when this is not an even number, you could still do it this way, but it's a little more challenging. So let me show you another way right after this. But just to demonstrate that this can still be done, let me show you. This is now x plus 1/2 squared equals to -3/4. Take the square root both sides. Remember, whenever you take the square root, you need plus or minus. There's plus minus square root of -3/4. Now, what's the square root of -1?
1. Wait, well.
No, square root of -1 is what we call the imaginary number. It's I, right? So it's plus minus square root of 3/4I. And then 1/2 goes to the other side, so you get x equals to -1/2 plus minus. If you have a square root of a fraction, you can take the square root of the top and bottom separately. So you have square root of 3 over square root of 4, which is 2i, and that's the final answer. Okay. Now, if this step is challenging, let me show you a second method. The resulting answer will be the same thing, so I'm not going to erase this. But we start out with the formula that we figured out a moment ago. X plus a squared is what? This is x squared plus 2ax plus a squared, right? So the second method does the following. You probably have seen this more, frankly. So what you do is you do the same thing. To get a, you still have to divide by 2. That's how you get the a. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2, right? But then, realizing that for this to appear, you need this a squared. So what you do is you take the square of that half number that you got, and you add it both sides. Okay? So here's 1. 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. You take the 1/2. You square this, which is what? 1/4, right? You take that number and add to both sides. And the place where you add them will be right after the x squared and x term. Right after the x term, you put the 1/4 that you figured out. You add 1/4 to both sides. And then this is now, according to this formula, it's x plus 1/2 squared. Okay? And then 1 you can subtract to the other side, which gives you -1/4 minus 1 is what? 1/4 minus 1 is -3/4, right? And afterwards it's the same answer. Okay? So this second method has to do with taking the half number, square that number, add to it both sides. Yes?
Which one do you think is easier?
Huh?
Which one do you think is easier?
If the middle number is even, then our previous method is easier. If it's not an even number, then this method is easier. Yeah. And actually, most teachers, because they don't want to teach too many methods, they just teach this one only. But it's a shame, because if the middle number is even, it's so much quicker to do the first way than the second way.